here in the city of Fitchburg. Thank you all for being here. First agenda item is call to order. I would like to call the meeting to order. Number 2 of the agenda is approval of minutes from the June 15th Police and Fire Committee meeting. Has everybody had time to review the meeting notes? And does anybody have any discussions or questions?
I'll move to approve the minutes as proposed.
Wonderful.
I'll second.
Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Wonderful. And now number 3, a public appearance for non-agenda items. And we do actually have somebody in the chambers here that would like to acknowledge. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Sean Bloom. I wanted to come and say thank you first and foremost to our police chief and fire chief for everything you guys do, and all the men and women that work with you. What you guys do for our community is very difficult. It's hard, and we appreciate you guys very much. I don't think you get that enough from people in the community, but really there's a lot that you've done for our family and for, I know you guys go to daycares and say hi to kids, and you do all sorts of extracurricular that is maybe not thought about often enough around the community, and we just want to thank you for that. On a personal note, too, a couple nights ago, around 3 in the morning, some kids were breaking into my wife's car in our driveway, and 2 officers just happened to be driving by at that moment, lucky enough, and stopped it right when it was happening. Could have got a lot worse, but their names are Craig Spangler and Juan Hinojos, and I just wanted to publicly state for the record how much we thank them, and wanted to let them know that we appreciate what they've done. The guys that were trying to break into the car woke up one of my kids, who's here with me, and scared her pretty good. So I'm glad that they were there, and just wanted to share that. So thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And if I could just respond to that, you don't know how powerful that is to come here in a public meeting on camera to make a statement such as that, and for us to play it. We just happen to see Officer Hinojos is present here today.
Thank you so much. You didn't come and say thank you. You scared my kids. They scared my kids really good, and you guys helped them. So thank you.
But we can't do that enough currently after an environment where there was such a public attention on law enforcement. And I say that because every month chiefs throughout different geographical areas get together to discuss ongoing topics. And last Thursday was our Dane County Chiefs meeting. And one of the discussions was on the morale of law enforcement members, coming out of 2020. Now that seems like 2 years ago, but you still have that, and it just seems like law enforcement is just a hot topic on the news. We can do no wrong. I mean, we can do no right.
Right.
You hear incidents that occurred, and not to open a wound, but you hear what happened in Texas. You hear what happens here in Highland Park, Illinois. How things affect your local law enforcement agency, and we're human beings. And the hardest thing is to come into work where you don't know what's going to happen. I had our administrative staff state that an officer was stopped monitoring traffic, and somebody drives, open the windows, gives that officer the bird and says a few 4-letter words. And what was the purpose of that?
Right.
What was the purpose to address somebody who's out there basically trying to keep the peace? And Fitchburg's a great community. You're a part of that community. And I cannot thank you enough for saying that publicly. That's a great mental health builder for our people.
These 2 officers didn't have to do anything. It's 3 in the morning. They could have drove up, seen something happen, honked the horn, and left. But they tried to catch these guys. They ran them down. They had an escape vehicle that they scattered. They ended up taking our keys to our house and to the car. So we still have to try to figure out how to keep our car safe, because it's a newer car. Even if it's in our garage, we have windows that can break. So I was up till 5 a.m. just watching to see if they'd come back. But these guys, they were heroes in the sense that they tried to do something and they didn't have to. And so we thank them very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out and
Appreciate it. Thank you
making
for
this.
seeing me.
Thank you very much for coming. It's a very traumatic experience, so definitely, this is a part of the healing process, and knowing that you're safe and asking our officers to make those extra rounds, I think is something that will help give you guys that, that feeling of comfort during these hard times. So thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming. Very brave. All right. You guys are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or you can go eat dinner and enjoy your evening and get some rest. Get some rest. Yes, thank you. 2 months in a row we've had thank you, so that's very good. So thank you, Chief, and we just keep doing the job that they do. Like you said, he could have just drove by and turned their head, but that's not what our officers do. So that's fantastic. So thank you. All right, moving into agenda number 4, report from the fire department. Chief?
Well, good evening. What you have in front of you, actually, I've distributed an updated copy as was indicated as I was passing it out. Formatting was addressed along with some dates associated with the report. So as of the end of June, we have everything updated. Our calls of service are up about 122% from what they were last year. We're projecting for about 2,500 calls at the end of the year. We're seeing that our call volume and the types of calls that we're receiving is consistent with what we've seen from year to year. And then inspections are on task to be completed as indicated through the state statute. Our staffing report, one of the things that's interesting to note in regards to our staffing report, I've been doing a retrospective of our department based on some requests from Alder Wielder specifically. He was trying to get an idea of how our department has changed over the years, and everything from promotions to the type of staff we have, paid on call, paid on premises, and career staff. And what was striking to me is, although call volume is up and although we have additional responsibilities, the total number of staff that we have is actually going down. And that's mostly reflected in our paid on call, paid on premises side. It is difficult right now to recruit for part-time assistants. So one of the things that I'm trying to address through the city is ultimately what will be affected through a municipal staffing plan, and how we eventually look to addressing those things that are more predictable on the staffing level, which is more than likely going to be career firefighters. I always see a need for a combination department in the city of Fitchburg as long as we can take advantage of it, but I also have to be realistic in my expectation. And my expectation is that we seriously have to consider, with a growing community, what it looks like to staff a department with more career people and still facilitate the education and the experience of those firefighters that are developing, some of our brand new firefighters, and getting out into the public to create job opportunities for those that haven't typically crossed our threshold. So there is a lot of value in having our intern program, a lot of value in having our paid on call, paid on premises program, but we have to be realistic in our expectation, and that was striking in what I had shared. The other thing that was striking is we at one time had upwards to 15 officers, that's the leaders in our organization, company officers, command staff officers. And right now we're at 8. So, and there too, some of that has to do with the capabilities and the the overall ability to do that type of job from a supervisory standpoint. And with our paid on call, paid on premises, what we were able to identify is our mean number for longevity is 5. Our mode is 2. Most of our firefighters on the paid on call, paid on premises side have 2 years of service. So it's not realistic to ask them to take a leadership role when they're still very much learning the profession. So the numbers that you're seeing aren't that far off from what you've seen in the past. We did, if you look at the recruitment notes, we brought on we had the potential of bringing on 6 paid on call, paid on premises members. Before we even started the class, one had transitioned to another department, and right now we have 2 in that class. And some of that just has to do with the training that's required of the position and the overall physical fitness that is part of the job. So just once again, being realistic that even though we hire or provide offers to 6 people, the likelihood of them making it through Recruit Academy is contingent on their ability to perform those tasks. We never want to put somebody in a position just to warm the seat. We absolutely need to make sure that they're capable of providing the skills that we've told the community that we're going to provide. Good news is over the past month in June, we brought on our 2 career firefighters. They were internal candidates. Both of them came from either our paid on premises or our intern side. And with that, they were able to be counted as staffing right away. When we bring people in from the outside, we still have to train them to our minimum skills, our minimum standards. So it takes some time to count them as staffing unless they've already been there. So what they've been concentrating on right now is driver's progression, and we've been able to get them in the fold as soon as we swore them in. As far as the promotions, we'll be talking about the deputy chief promotion today in closed session. We'll be able to get some answers on that, and that will drive what happens with the lieutenant's process and then opening a firefighter position, a career firefighter position. And I know that you had expressed interest in our overtime and our mandates. You can see the trend for our firefighter overtime. We just have been trending that from month to month, giving you an idea. The summer months, we typically have more overtime, that and deer hunting, so we can expect that spike. The mandates in May and June, I didn't provide you with the May numbers last time, so I wanted to make sure you had that this time. So those May and June mandates are there. And then as far as my pay periods, you can see the hours that I'm working right now, and hopefully some of that will be alleviated with the promotion of a deputy chief, but I'm also realistically approaching that one too. It's not going to eliminate all of those hours. So the good news is I get to cover some of those hours from home because I live in the city, and I don't have to stay at the fire station the whole time. The drawback to that is the fact that it limits my flexibility in what I can do when I'm at home. So I'm very much on the clock and available for call. And that's the staffing report, unless anybody has any questions.
I do have a question about the officers and the decline in officers. Has there been a significant change in educational requirements to obtain that status?
No.
Statewide?
And not so much statewide. I mean, there is a state fire officer certification that we require our firefighters to get if they're going to assume that position. It's a semester-long class.
And we would put them through that?
We do, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And if they ever are operating within the realm of a company officer, we fund that training.
And,
Go ahead.
sorry, Chief, for that staffing issue, you mentioned kind of a decline over 5 years. Is that a decline in authorized full-time equivalent headcount? or is that a decline in the people who are physically in the seats? So you've got a lot of vacancies, but has the FTE headcount decreased at all?
Yeah, the city hasn't taken the positions away. It's our ability to fill them.
Okay.
And you were just at the Fire Chiefs Association, right?
Yes.
And is this statewide, again, like decline in the combination departments? Are we seeing this, this is amongst, right?
Yeah, so for in full disclosure, I'm the first vice president for the state of Wisconsin Fire Chiefs, and one of the initiatives that we're taking on is recruitment and retention, because we're not only addressing career departments, we're addressing those departments that are paid on call, paid on premises, and volunteer. And what we're finding is, depending on the size of department, depending on the number of calls they go on, and the time of day that those calls are received is impacting our ability to recruit. So I'll give you a case in point. If you come from a smaller community where you have maybe 30 firefighters, and you know, you're responding in a rural environment, so chances of you getting to a fire when you can fight it in the incipient level and get inside and fight that fire is very low. The fact of the matter is they don't typically have a whole lot of calls every year. It could be 200 calls a year, maybe less. What's truly something that drives and impacts our ability to recruit is calls after midnight. So you figure on a paid on call, paid on premises, or a volunteer department, they all have full-time jobs, right? So if they're getting a bunch of calls after midnight and then have to go into work the next day, that can affect their livelihood. And that's where we start seeing the retention issues within the fire service. And the other thing is just the nuclear family has changed. We're not the same fire service we were 30 years ago. We're very much recognizing that moms and dads stay at home, and we're also recognizing the fact that there's a number of different responsibilities that circulate around the priority of family. So whereas the fire department used to be a significant player in what happened when people were done with work, that paradigm has shifted. And we're seeing that now. People do not want to go to work for 12 and look at your neighbors and see what time they go into work and what time they come home from work. It could be an 8, 10, 12, 14-hour day. Last thing they want to do when they come home from work is go into the fire department and staff a fire truck. So we do have people on our staff that do exactly that, and I appreciate them for everything that they're worth. And we celebrate the fact that we're still able to maintain some staff in that regard, but we also have to be realistic in our expectations of what they are able to bring to the table. They can't drop everything anymore and just come into the fire station when they're caring for their kids. And we have some firefighters with some very young families. So to just, go into the fire station when the pager goes off is something that used to happen, not so much anymore.
Getting creative. Was this, and I think I said the Fire Chiefs Association, I meant the National Fire Academy. Is this a discussion there?
Oh, yeah. It's not only a discussion at the National Fire Academy, but through the International Association of Fire Chiefs, through the VCOS section, which is volunteer and combination departments. They have put together a number of different programs that revolve around recruitment and retention, and also looking at diversity and inclusion, because that's all part of it. It's easy to recruit what you've always had, but then to get beyond that and to resemble your communities is something completely different. And so that's another initiative associated with that approach.
Thank you. Any questions about the staffing report of the fire department?
Just a quick question, Chief. So is your plan to sort of like work around this situation is going and asking for additional paid career firefighter positions since you're unable to fill these positions?
Yeah, eventually.
Maybe that's where I'm going in my mind. Okay.
Yeah, so we're approaching it similarly, but I also have to do it in a way that is responsible to the overall budget.
Right.
Right? So I'm talking about 5-10 years down the road. I have to set the stage for things that we need to start considering now. The last thing anybody wants to hear 5 years from now is that we're in a staffing crisis.
Right.
We don't have anybody in the seats, and I didn't do my job in educating and informing. So I very much want to work with our city alders, our elected officials, and the community to identify the best ways of being able to positively impact our response.
Yeah, it sounds like the paradigm has shifted. We're not the same place we were 30 years ago, so go for it.
Thank you, and we will continue. And we're obviously looking, much like Chief Morales said, it's nice when the community can advocate for the service, and when they know what's needed, and can help in that process. Because I'm not naive. Public safety costs money, right?
Yes.
It's a tax burden, but it's a burden worth investing in.
I love that we're having the conversation and that the alders are inquiring, right? We're all thinking, we got to think a couple of years ahead, so
Oh, absolutely.
great. Any further comments or questions? No? All right, let's move to 4B, closed session. Would somebody like us take us into closed session?
Oh, we have to read all that.
I can move us into closed session. I move that pursuant to section 19.85 sub 1 sub C Wisconsin statutes, the commission moves into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically to make hiring recommendations for deputy fire chief.
Do I need a second? Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
And we have a second. So any further discussion? If not, we will move into closed session. All right, everybody, as we move back into open session now, do I have any motions on the floor?
I would like to make a motion for the chief's recommendation to promote Lieutenant Rob Kunze to deputy chief.
Do I have a second for that motion?
I second.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Deputy Fire Chief Rob Kunze.
Yeah, congratulations. And then just a point of clarification, we would be able to start him as soon as the next pay period.
Oh, great.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, so let's move on to 4D. Authorization to begin a career and paid on-call lieutenant recruitment process. Sounds like this opens up a lieutenant position.
It does open up a lieutenant's position, and there is one clarification on here. We've actually already begun the process. Now, one thing that we had talked about, Sarah and I, is that maybe we want to open it up for another 2 weeks in the case that somebody has matured to the level that they are now eligible to go through the process. And then because we may not run this process for another 2+ years. So it's worth making sure that we have all eligible candidates who want to apply in the process.
How many applicants do we currently have? Let's start with how many,
So the career side, and I didn't bring the.
Yeah, I can bring that up. And the reason that it's already been posted, it was back in earlier this year. So through the budget process, we were able to post for lieutenant because we had it approved through the budget process. And then we had to close it because we found out we didn't actually have, I don't recall exactly what had happened, why we had to close it. Do you remember
Because of the fact that the deputy chief position used the funds that were going to be used for the lieutenant positions.
But I can tell you what we've got for applicants for lieutenant. So we had 2 processes. We had a career lieutenant and then a paid on-call lieutenant. So they're 2 separate recruitment processes.
That will be run congruently.
Okay.
Correct. All right, so for the career, we had We had posted this back in January, and we had 7 applicants. And so if we can reopen it, then potentially we might have more people who are interested. And then for paid on-call lieutenant, we had,
I believe 3.
I think it was 3 as well. I'm just going to confirm here. It was 4 applicants.
And that is January as
Yep,
well, that one?
January, yeah. We did it both together.
The 2 weeks you had suggested, what is the requirement? Is it a year? Or what is the requirement in order to fulfill this?
So if
So
we
we're
look at
trying
the
to-
fire lieutenant paid on call, the qualifications is a minimum of 2 years of continuous service on the Fitchburg Fire Department. And then currently employed as a firefighter, either as a paid on call or a paid on premise.
And then this was the process that was approved by the PFC before. We do have a qualifications inventory that gives them credit for the programs that they're associated with, their contributions to the fire department, the longevity that they have within the department, whether they've acted in an acting officer role, along with their certifications and their formal education, their degrees. So we take that into consideration and weight that appropriately to make sure that we're recognizing those who maybe don't have a lot of time on, but have invested their time wisely in education. So somebody with 5 years maybe has more schooling than somebody with 10 years on the department, and it's worth recognizing that effort.
Is 2 weeks long enough? I mean,
It is.
that is?
I think with the 7, out of the number of career firefighters that we have, that's about as many as we're going to get, but it's worth opening it up just to make sure.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I mean, we want applicants and,
Fill this position and you need the best candidate possible. This was back in January. Like, it makes them, life might have changed for some of those 7. Like, you don't know, you might get to the table and you might have 5. So I think it makes the most sense to open it back up and regroup. I mean, that was a long time ago.
Agreed.
so this 4D, the authorization to begin needs to be reworded, right?
We could say reopen.
Reopen or reestablish.
Okay.
Because those that have already applied are not going to have to reapply.
They don't have to
Their
reapply.
applications are already in the system. Now, if they want to make additions or addendums, they can contact Sarah, and that can be, we'll send out information to provide instructions so that if they have more to provide, they can.
So their applications are just sitting in hold, like the 7 applicants are just sitting there because we didn't have the funding?
Exactly.
So,
They were
okay.
notified too, but yep,
Okay.
they're
I've
just
been
sitting in
keeping
there.
them informed throughout the process. I can appreciate the fact that there's a lot of questions associated with promotion, and people just want to be informed. So as everything was changing and as processes were pushed back and placed on hold, they were informed. And I actually invited them in for a meeting so that they could ask questions about any concerns that they had about the process.
Does this cause any hostility amongst the hiring process for the 7 that are on the list, and then we extend it? Does it leave anybody out, I guess, is?
I think the only thing that, and this is a perception issue, and this is why I will say that the recommendation did come from Sarah, and I appreciate the recommendation, and I think it's one we should follow. But the perception is maybe we're holding off for another candidate that I find to be better suited, right?
Right.
And that's not the case.
Okay.
That was,
So-
because the 2 weeks is very specific, and that's where I was
Yep, so
concerned. So I just want to make sure we're very transparent, we're fair and equal, and, so what is,
at the end of the day, the best candidate is the one that comes out on top, right?
Right.
So regardless of how many people are in the pool.
Is this something we're just going to change this timeframe for did we miss something, an opportunity, or is it just because they've sat on hold for so long?
Right, so we didn't bring it back to the Police and Fire Commission just because we weren't able to make any hires, because we had to put it on hold. So it doesn't change anything. They'll still go through the recruitment process, and then before Chief can make a recommendation for hire, we'll bring it back to you to let you know how the interview process went, who the top candidates were, and then to get your approval to extend that offer. So it'll still come back to the Police and Fire Commission.
We'll still cover all the steps. We're going to do a
Exactly.
360 feedback tool. We're going to do an interview along with a presentation on a selected topic. And there is going to be the ability for us to take a look at personnel files and things like that, and just make sure that we are selecting somebody who's not just putting in the effort close to the promotional process. They've been doing it all along.
Do the applicants that applied and have been on the list since January, do they get any preference points in this process, or no? Would the ones that we open up to the 2 weeks, will they just come in and it's still equal playing field for all, everything pertains?
Absolutely, and the only reason I'm recommending for us to reopen it is because it was way back in January when we originally posted this, so it just gives people an opportunity who maybe didn't put in for it originally to, throw in for it, because it is several months later, so.
And like you said, we may not have this process for a while.
Right.
Right, and chances are the people that would be writing for the process are because they just now crossed the threshold for the time on. So there's already a longevity kicker.
The 2 years, how many people does this allow to apply for this position now with hitting that 2-year mark?
I think with the exception of the firefighters that we just hired, everybody is eligible.
Okay, good. Well, no, that sounds good then.
Really
I wanted to
good.
make sure it wasn't just one person that, that would look
That's
suspicious.
the benefit of our career staff, is the fact that they're the backbone, the structure of our department, no doubt. But we have a tendency of keeping our career members for the long term. So,
Yeah.
we're pretty fortunate that way.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, that sounds good. So this one, we will need a motion in order to reopen the fire department lieutenant career and paid on-call lieutenant recruitment process, an extension of 2 weeks. Would somebody like to make that motion?
I can make a motion to amend agenda item 4D to change the wording for the reauthorization or the reopening for the career lieutenant recruitment process for an additional 2 weeks.
And do I have a second?
I second.
All right. All in favor of approving the authorization to reopen a lieutenant and paid on-call lieutenant recruitment process for an extension of 2 weeks, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right. Anything else? No?
I do not.
All right. Thank you. All right. We're going to move to agenda item number 5, and it's a report from the police department. Chief?
Hello, everyone. We'll start off with the staffing report. We lost another officer on a short notice resignation after this staffing report was submitted, which was on July 1st. So we're down 4 officers. That's down 33 officers, down to 50 sworn. That gives us 4 vacancies. On-field training, on a good note, one of our officers just completed field training last week. I don't know if I can mention his name? Or we didn't put that on the agenda?
No, it'll be on the next one to
It'll be on
remove
the
his
next
probationary status.
So one officer completed field training. That'll be on the next agenda. So that puts us currently at 2 officers in field training. One of those officers was mentioned today in the stop of the citizen that mentioned that with Officer Hinojos. We have 1 currently in the Law Enforcement Academy. Total positions unfilled is 7. So we're still working on recruitment. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. As far as order-ins, we're up in order-ins. We're going to be up through the summer. Total of 39 order-ins for June. The average hours is 3 hours. Number of order-ins per current unfilled position is 4.3. Patrol staff available is 75% available, 25 not. But we did some things, and I'm hoping that this kind of keeps everybody engaged in morale versus last year where we struggled in the summer due to vacancies. Some of that is, obviously, we have 4 vacancies, but we also have neighborhood officers that we created this year. They started June 1st, one of them. He was present here today. The other one is going to start August. So we're removing officers from some other duties to give the department, the organization, a little bit more variety. We also brought back the domestic violence unit. They're doing a lot of research during their downtime. And we did pull one for the acting detective position. So that's creating some of these vacancies, but I'm hoping it's creating the vacancies in a good way because it's providing the much needed variety in the job that was brought up when I was brought to the organization. So it sounds bad with the order-ins, but I'm hoping that we can maintain so far so good for the month of June as far as the activity and the workload. I'm hoping we could get through this summer, reassess, and then plan for next year to see where we're going to be at. As far as you have the notes there, if there's any other questions on the staffing or monthly order-ins, I can move on.
Any questions? No? All right, Chief. Go ahead. Thank you. All right. Are we ready to move in closed session, or do you? Yeah? Okay. All right. So we're going to move into closed session. I can read the closed session, right? Pursuant to section 19.85 subsection 1 subsection 2 C Wisconsin statutes, the commission will move into closed session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically to make hiring recommendations for new police officers and to notice the commission of 2 resignations. All right, that was a hard one to get out. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor? Moving into closed session, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are back in open session. Thank you. Do we have any motions on the floor?
To approve Chief Morales to provide conditional offers to the list provided of potential police officer candidates.
And do I have a second for that motion?
A second.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Chief, thank you. All right, let's move on to number 5D, authorization to begin a police officer continuous recruitment process. Any discussion?
Yeah, so with our current vacancy of police officer, we only had 47 applicants. So with each recruitment, we're getting less and less number of people interested in becoming a police officer. So with that, what we'd like to do is have a continuous recruitment. So always have a period of time where we are recruiting for police officers. We'll just pilot this out. We have done this for other positions in the city. It's working pretty well for us. So we would still bring everything to the Police and Fire Commission for approval if we move forward with someone, if we want to place an offer. But this would help us so that we could even interview every couple of weeks as we get candidates in that are qualified, so that we're not waiting a month and a half, 2 months later to bring in people who have already found other employment. So I'm looking for the PFC to approve the opportunity to have a continuous police officer recruitment.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Is there any discussion on the authorization to begin a police officer continuous recruitment process? I think this is a great idea. I think right now in the times that we are having this, changing things up, the way we hire and the way we, go through this process, we have to get creative right now. We don't want to miss out on losing great applicants. Back in the day when there was hundreds of applicants, the hiring process was implemented in order to help manage that process. So now that we are in smaller numbers, and we are still in dire need of applicants, I think this is a great suggestion. So thank you for bringing this to us. Any further discussion on this?
No, I would just concur. I believe this is certainly a great suggestion, and again, based on the environment we're in, I think this is going to keep the police department from feeling like their hands are somewhat tied, right? Having to go through the bureaucracy of a process each time, right, for authorization. So I'm in total support of a continuous recruitment process.
And then Sarah, is this something that we need to put a time limit on? Is this,
What we could do is at the next Police and Fire Commission, let you know how it's going. So we could let
Okay.
you know how many applicants we're getting in with
Great.
this new continuous, and then we can kind of see how things are going at that time. So it's not a forever thing. We
Right.
can definitely close the posting when needed.
I think that's great. I just want to make sure if we needed to clarify that. But continuous means continuous until we sit down and reevaluate, and it becomes, we get the days where we have hundreds and hundreds of applicants again. So hopefully that does come. But all right, well, do I have a motion to authorize the beginning of a police officer continuous recruitment on the floor?
So moved. Or would you like me to state the motion?
Please.
Okay, I move that we authorize the police department to begin a police officer continuous recruitment process.
And do I have a second? Great, all in favor? Raise.
I second.
Wonderful. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Great, so, well, that is, I think that hopefully that's a relief to you, Chief, and the recruitment process, and to you as well, Sarah. So anything we can do to help keep applicants coming, and so, wonderful. All right, let's go to E, request for police chief to, oh no, I just did that one. Wait.
Yes.
Okay, yes, request for police chief to extend conditional offers for future processes. Do you want to elaborate more on this one?
Yes, let me get back to that, put my glasses on. Okay. Yes, requesting, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I'd like to request the opportunity to offer conditional offers to members on the list that were interviewed for the position of police officer. And as we move through that list, to be able to provide a conditional offer of employment as they come.
Oh, so this is tied to the police officer current
That's the same
recruitment.
one.
Oh,
We
okay,
just
so
voted on it.
we can actually disregard that agenda item. I think there was some confusion, so, yeah, so we can disregard that agenda item.
We already did that one.
Yep,
We included
yep,
that.
It was included with the closed session.
Okay, so we'll just make note of that, so, and we approved that essentially in the other
Exactly.
one, so that's
Yep.
been approved, so good. All right, agenda item number 6, any announcements? Do we have any announcements?
Yes. Logan, can you step forward and introduce yourself in your new role with the Fitchburg Police Department?
And turn on your microphone.
So, oh, it's off now. There we go. Okay, thanks for that. So my name's Logan Brown. I was recently appointed to the neighborhood officer position here at Fitchburg. I've been with Fitchburg for 3.5 years. And I have also recently taken on the role of being our union's president. So I look forward to working with all of you and trying to make Fitchburg a better place to live.
Wonderful, thank you. Those are 2 big roles to fill.
Yes, they are. My hands are definitely full,
Yes.
that's for sure.
But you have the energy, and hopefully you have great mentorship, and hopefully it sounds like maybe talks of union, other collaborating as far as,
Absolutely, and that's what I wanted to pass on, is I cannot train him in that position,
Right.
but I can offer him, different contacts for him to get some mentoring or some advice from people who have done that for double-digit years, and was able to provide that for him to help his growth in that field, even though sometimes our meetings are not going to go the way either one of us want them to go, but to show that we are both still, our intentions and our drive should be for the betterment of the organization and the members that we are here to represent.
That's wonderful. No, that's good. We got to stay educated in all, right? All aspects work together as a team. And I love hearing that the neighborhood position is a position that you've created, and the domestic violence team is coming back. So thank you for creating those positions for our police officers to see the opportunity for growth. I think that's really important for all of our officers. So thank you, and thank you as well.
Yeah, you're welcome. The other thing I'd mention too that we're doing is we have our bike patrol unit that's back. And so me being a neighborhood officer, I appreciate that. We just came back from that training last week. It was a 5-day, 40-hour course. And traditionally everybody learns how to ride a bike when they're young, right? And if you don't do it for a while, then you have to get back on the horse, so to speak, and learn how to do it again. So that was fun to do. I did 8 miles the other day and 9 miles today on it just out in the community. So I think it's another great asset to have at the police department.
That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I think those are things that you need to share that are going to separate Fitchburg Police Department and Fire Department from other departments, is that we're going above and beyond and doing those things. So that's great to hear. Thank you. Keep us posted. Come back and give us updates. Say hello. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Any other announcements? No announcements. All right. Number 7 is adjournment. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. It's off on. Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the July 20th Police and Fire Commission meeting.
Wonderful. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.